Alright guys, got another video here for y'all. This is my Craftsman garden tractor that I have, and it will not start. So we're going to do a little walk down the chart of what to check on it and see why it's not starting. If you like my videos, give them a thumbs up, click subscribe. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we can learn something together. I'm going to go ahead and get the hood raised up on this thing and start showing you what to check first. Okay, I've got my little cheap little Harbor Freight voltmeter, ohm meter here, whatever. It doesn't have to really be anything fancy to do this job with. I'm gonna flip it on. I'm gonna set it. This is a DC volt system. It's 12 volt DC system. I want to select the range that's closest to what I'm checking. So I'm using a 12 volt system. I'm going to select the 20 volt on the DC. Flip it on. And what I'm wanting to do, the first thing I want to check, the very first thing, is check the battery, see if the battery's any good. So I'm going to hook this thing up and see what we're working with. That's backwards. Alright, so we got a little over 12.5 volts, so that's showing good. Now here is where you can load test it. You can, I have a load tester. I can check this battery. It puts a load on it. Basically just mimics what the starter is doing on it, and it'll show you if it drops down too much or not. I'm not going to do that. I'm just not getting signal. It's not doing any kind of clicking at all when I turn the key. Next thing you want to make sure is, like any of your safety switches, make sure your PTO is off. Make sure your parking brake is depressed and locked into place like it's supposed to be. And just kind of check through those little things. Make sure that you're doing the proper startup procedure on it. Then if you're still not getting any startup, where I like to start off is at the end result and then kind of work my way back. So I know that the starter's not engaging. So I'm going to work from my starter and go backwards from there. So I adjusted my camera a little so I can show you better. This is the starter solenoid. On some machines, the solenoid is actually attached and made onto the starter. On this particular machine, you have a starter motor and the starter solenoid is separate from that. What happens when you turn the key switch to the start position, you get a signal that comes to this solenoid that completes the connection between these two big cables here, and it allows the 12 volts to go to the starter. It spins the starter, engages into the flywheel, and that's when it starts. So I'm going to start with the solenoid and see if when I turn the key, if I'm getting 12 volts to the solenoid or not. And how do I do that? Is sometimes you'll always have these two big wires on the top. Sometimes you have a 2-wire set up on the side of the solenoid, 2 smaller wires. Sometimes it's just one. If it's a 2-wire, one of those usually goes to ground, and you can see here, let me see if I can get a little bit better angle. There's a white wire going there, and there's also this black wire going to it. So this is a 2-wire, and then that black wire that's going to the solenoid just immediately runs right over and goes to this ground bolt. So I'm going to check this white wire. I'm going to unhook it and plug it up to my meter here and see if I'm getting 12 volts when I turn the starter. Okay, I've got my meter hooked up there, the positive to the white wire, and then my ground. I'm going to put it on the ground terminal of the battery and hit the key switch, and I should see 12.5 volts, something around in there. I should see those numbers move. And if I don't, then I know I'm not getting from the switch, I'm not getting 12 volt power from the switch down to the solenoid. So let me hook this up to the battery and I'll see what happens. And the key's in the start position and nothing's happening. Okay. So now what I need to do is I need to go through and check my continuity between this wire and where it gets its source of power, which on this particular model is the starter switch. So I'm going to leave that positive wire, because I've got a little alligator clip on it. I'm going to leave that hooked up, and then I'm going to get around to the other side over here. And to check the continuity, you want to go to where you see the omega symbol. That's for the ohms. I'm just going to put it in somewhere in there. And what will happen is, if I got continuity, when I touch the two wires together, it should come off of that one, and then it reads the amount of resistance that I have in that connection there. So when I go to the back of the key switch with this probe right here for the starter terminal, I should see numbers come across that screen. If not, then I know that it's going to likely be something in the PTO switch or a safety switch that's keeping it from starting. So let me go over here and look and see what we got going on. So on the back of the starter switch, I'm getting connection all the way down through all of my safety switches down to the starter cylinder. So that leads me to believe that I have a bad key switch. So I happen to have one. I'm going to pop this one out, and it's pretty simple to replace on this particular unit. Sometimes they're a little bit harder to get to than others, but you have to get up under the dash over here. It's on the, there's the key. So it's on the back side of that right there. It's pretty easy to get to. I'll probably take the battery out just to make it a little bit easier. And I'm going to replace that, and we'll come back and see what happens. Okay, I've got the new switch mounted in there. I've got the battery put back in and hooked back up. So I'm going to give the key a twist and see what happens. I got the parking brake down, PTO's disengaged, it's out of gear. Let's see what happens. All right, the starter's engaging. Now my starter motor's dirty and it's not wanting to kick up, so I'm gonna have to pull that and clean that. But one thing I want to say, point out a note to you, that not all key switches, they may look alike, and this one's a 5-prong, and a lot of them are 5-prong. Just because it is a 5-prong doesn't mean that it's the same one for your specific application. They have different circuitry in there, and if you look closely at them, you can see that they'll have a S, a B, a M, so on and so forth. Those letters might be in different places from one switch to the other, and so if you just try to put, you know, a switch from like a Murray tractor in this thing, you hook it up, get it put in there, plug it up, hook the battery up, and it's liable to start popping fuse, smoking wires, and do nothing at all, just because the connections that it makes on the inside here are different than what you need. So if you do need a new key switch, order one or purchase one, you know, at your local store that's specifically for your application. That way you know you're getting the right one. But I appreciate you watching. Like I said again, give me if you enjoyed the video, give it a share it to somebody that you know works on stuff. Give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it if you to subscribe as well. Now I gotta fix this deadgum starter motor. Thanks.